That would be terrible. Okay, I'm going to try really hard to stay around here so I'm in shot, but I'm not promising anything. Yeah. That's okay, cool. You'll still get the sound and the pictures, I guess. For those of you that haven't met me before, it's lovely to be back. I think it was about November, the last time I was in a session. For those of you who never met me before, here's a quick introduction. That's how you say my name, because it's not just Joseph that struggles with it. it's everybody. So call me Dove. It's a lot easier. So my background is 10 years in travel, 12 years in financial services, and since setting up my business, which is called Ye, 6 years ago, I work with a range of businesses, mostly medium and large corporate businesses, both here in the UK and virtually. Here in the UK and globally, and a lot of that now is virtual. So actually, COVID did me a lot of favors because everybody kind of bought into the idea that you can do stuff online and do it nearly as well as doing it in person. So that's enough about me. So what we're going to talk about tonight is personal effectiveness. Now, some people kind of call this time management or managing your time. There's a whole lot more about that. And as a business owner, I know we were just talking just briefly, this can be really, really hard to be effective all of the time. But especially when we've got lots of stakeholders, maybe working across time zones, maybe we've got people working for us directly or indirectly. We're not only managing our own time, we've got to manage other people's time and expectations as well. So it's quite a lot to think about and a lot of extra pressure. And of course, if we are not effective doing the job, then the business suffers and our reputation suffers as well. So that's the why. That's why we need to be as effective as possible. So for those of you who've seen sessions before, I'm not going to talk at you for the next 40 minutes. I want you to join in because then you're much more likely to remember stuff and, more importantly, take the information away from tonight and do something with it because that's the really important thing. For everybody that's turned up tonight, I've already sent a PDF to Joe to send out to you sometime this week. That's free. That's no cost. A little gift for coming along tonight. But essentially, that's some reference from some of the stuff some of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, cool. So what I'd like you to think about is how effective are you now? Okay, however you want to measure effectiveness, your own personal effectiveness, how effective are you now? And then to put that on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being, I can't organize myself and can't get out of bed properly in the morning and start work on time, all the way through to 10 being, I'm super effective, I get everything done, I'm on top of stuff all of the time. Okay, so have a moment to think about that. I'll give you 30 seconds, because I've only got 40 minutes. 30 seconds, how effective are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Have a think about that for a second. I don't want the answer, because I haven't got time to go through everybody. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective are you? Of course, we'll get good days, we get not such good days, maybe good weeks, not such good weeks, but on the whole, how effective are you? Okay, what I'd like you to do is to turn to somebody sitting next to you, which is easy for you to, and just tell them what your number is and why you think that is. Okay, so what have you scored yourself, and why is that? Literally, 15 seconds each. Okay, time's up. It's going to be pacey. It's going to be a pacey session. Okay, quick show of hands. How many of you scored 10? 9? 8? Oh, better. Anybody lower than 5? Don't answer. Okay, that's for you to know. Okay, so what I'd like you to think about, whatever you identified, okay, first takeaway from tonight, if you were to do one thing, so let's say you scored yourself 5, I'll go right down the middle, what one thing can you do from tomorrow to get it to a 6? If you could do one thing a little bit better, what can you do to move it from a 5 to a 6? Do you want to volunteer an answer?
Yeah.
So,
write down the next day's tasks that day.
okay, fantastic. Okay, cool, Vicky.
I'd turn off my phone.
Okay, wonderful.
Not being interrupted by...
Everything. Steve?
I'd turn off my negative people that are around me.
Oh.
I don't mean I just mean
More generally. Okay, cool. Any other ideas? If you were to do one thing better from tomorrow?
I'd ban myself from going onto Google to research something
And then get distracted.
and then get distracted about stupid news feeds. And then
Absolutely.
10 minutes later, forget what I'm supposed to be doing.
Sorry.
I think I just intend to be a 10.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, also visualizing what 10 would look like. Okay, so you're already identifying some things that can make you effective, right? Or more effective. So that's my first ask of you. Whatever you just thought of, start it tomorrow. And then 3 weeks' time, you'll have stopped doing that and you'll reverted back to how you were before. Okay, so the second task will be, right, put it down, write it down. 3 weeks from now, ask yourself the question, am I doing what I said I was going to do in Business Club? Because about half of you won't be doing it and you'll just revert back to what you're doing before. And that's the problem with personal effectiveness. It takes habit, okay? And it takes your own motivation to do that, but we will tend to revert back to bad habits, okay? But we know that if we are distracted by our phone, so we've gone Google or we're not writing tomorrow's to-do list, okay, immediately we become less effective, okay? The stuff I'm going to tell you tonight is common sense. The challenge is it's not common practice, okay? I'm always quite nervous about doing this kind of content to business owners, but also to business leaders. I have this conversation with some quite senior people in large corporates and they go, do you know what? That's a really good idea. It's like, yeah, it probably is, but you probably would have learned this 30 years ago when you were first level line manager. But we just get into bad habits for whatever reason. Okay. So what do we need then to perform well in work? Because this is why we want to be effective. It's because we want to perform really well in what we do. Okay, because we have to perform because we're business owners, but we have to perform well for our clients and our customers and for our stakeholders and also for people who work for us and with us as well. Okay, so we are always thinking about performance, but we need a level of healthy stress in our life to help us perform well. Okay, so we need a balance of challenge, or we need a level of skill as well. Okay, common sense? That makes sense? Yeah? Cool. So we need the challenge to get us out of bed in the morning. Of course, as a business owner, I know that if I don't get out of bed in the morning, I don't work and I don't pay the mortgage. Okay, so that's quite a good motivation to get out of bed and do stuff. Okay, but also we need a level of skill to do our jobs as well. But what got us here won't get us there. There's a book around that. I've never read it, but I really like the title. Okay, so what got me here is not going to get me to the next stage of growing the business. Yeah, because the world is changing as well. The macro environment changes all the time. So we need new knowledge, we need new skills, but importantly, we need to learn new behaviors as well. And I spend most of my time encouraging people to think about their behavior rather than the knowledge and the skill that they've got to do their job. Okay, so think about this. So if your challenge at work is greater than the level of skill that you've got, you are likely to feel anxious, frustrated, your stress levels will build out, so it'll turn from healthy pressure to stress, and then you burn out. How many of you have felt burnt out in the last 2 years? I have. Okay, and that's usually because the challenge is greater than the skill or the capacity or your mindset to do something. If your skill is greater than the challenge, okay, then we get bored, we get demotivated, even as business owners as well. So it's really important that we maintain our skills, but make sure that we are giving ourselves enough of a challenge. So whether that's changing our marketing strategy or whatever that might be, so we're constantly learning and challenging and growing as well. How many of you have heard the term being in flow? Has anybody come across that before? Or 3 or 4 people? Okay, so in flow is a term that's been knocking around for a number of years. And the flow channel, being in flow, is when you get a healthy balance, more often than not, of skill versus challenge. Okay, so for those of you who have heard about being in flow, what is that about for you? How would you describe that? Yeah, that's great. In a good way. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. You know, yeah, it's pleasant. Yeah, you get into work, you start work, you put up your desk, you switch on your laptop, whatever it is that you do, and then all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock. And it's like, oh, whatever time we finish. You go, wow, that was a really good day. It's been really, really productive. And I've not had to think about it too much. Yes, there's a lot of unconscious behavior going on. And that's what flow is like. We know what it's like not being in flow because there's too much to do. We're too stressed. We're not being effective in our work. Or maybe we don't have the skills, the knowledge, or the behaviors to do the job well. That throws us out of kilter. It throws us out of flow. I know when I've had a flow day, yeah, because it's just gone really well. Maybe I've done some coaching sessions, or I've done a session like this, and it's just gone really well. I haven't had to think about it too much because the level of challenge was there. Because there's always I've been doing this job for 20 years, but it's still a bit of a challenge to stand up in front of a group. But it's also having the knowledge, the skill, and the behaviors to do that. And one of those things is out of kilter, you get out of flow. But when you're in flow, it feels great. So always thinking about what you need. Are you giving yourself enough challenge so that you're highly effective and you're performing well? But also, do you have the knowledge, the skills, and the behaviors, not only for now, but the future as well? Make sense? Something to think about. Okay, cool. Bless you. So we started to talk about how the macro environment, the world changes all the time. We need to be better, more efficient, more effective all the time. I knew David might be here tonight, so I thought I'd put some racing cars on. Okay, so in this example, this is a pit stop in the top from 1981, and underneath it's a pit stop from 2019. Okay, so just to see how performance has changed and how effective individuals and teams have become.
Unless you've got 3 bottles.
Okay, how many of you got a bit bored watching the second video? It's only 20 seconds long. Yeah, the first one's about 5 or 6 seconds long. Okay, so here's a question to think about for 15 seconds. Are you and your team more like 1981 or more like 2019? And why is that? Have a think about that for a second. Okay, talk to the person sitting next to you. Have a quick conversation. 30 seconds only. Okay, time's up. Okay, what I'd like to do is just go around a couple of people and just ask which team are you most like and why is that? Okay, so there's a bit of psychological risk here, right, about sharing this kind of stuff amongst a room of peers, but let's just go for it anyway. So, anybody like to start us off? No? Not Kevin. I don't know your name, sorry. Alex.
I'd say I'm like the second team,
Mhm.
but I'm worse than the second team. I'm still trying to work out where the tyre goes, and where the petrol pump is.
Yeah, okay. Fab. I love it when people start stretching the metaphors. It's great. Okay, thanks, Alex. Chris, did you want to go next? No, I thought you just put your hand up. It's just as well it's not an auction.
One of the things with the Red Bull team, you'll have noticed their tyres are smaller, tyres are lighter, technology better, and they have more people. There's a lot of factors that are making them 2.29 seconds as opposed to whatever that was. So it could be actually adding to your team can make you more efficient as well.
Yeah.
And that means adding to your team maybe subcontractually or payroll-wise.
Well, they've also got a much better process of doing it.
Yeah.
Which is like where we are. I'm halfway in between.
Yeah.
Because the process isn't quite finished.
Yeah.
Red Bull have to actually slow, not Red Bull, but Formula One have had to actually slow that down because they were so quick that it was considered dangerous. They were nearly sub 2 seconds. I think they might have got sub 2.
Wow, it's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
The big factors for what you're comparing it to, isn't it? Because in 81, most teams would be very similar to that.
Yeah.
So the difference would still probably only be slight between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about that, it's thinking now who your competitors are and how effective are they. So if you're in 1991 and your teams are in the 80s, then that's great. But it's likely that they're going to start catching up behind you as well. So you're constantly looking at the processes. Are our processes as lean as they can be, no matter how many people you've got in your team? Does everybody, do you know what your job is? So as your business grows, are you doing the stuff that you used to do, doing somebody else's job, or are you now doing your job, focusing on strategy and building your relationships and forward thinking and financial planning and all that kind of stuff, or are you still doing what you used to do, which now you've employed somebody else to do as well? So it's thinking about, what is your role in that, what your process is like, are they right? Are you spending enough time, as Brian used to say, like working on your business, not just in your business, and taking that step back and actually starting to think about, actually, what are the processes? Where are things falling down constantly? Yeah, and it's costing me money. And it's just making sure that you know what your job is, but everybody in their team, in your team, do they know what their roles and responsibilities are as well? Because it's very, very defined in that team. They know exactly what they want to do. They're a specialist in one part of that. Yeah, but it's also the kit that you used as well. Is that the best that you can afford to help you to do your job? So there's a lot of factors in 20 seconds of video there to think about. Okay. I did a program for mid-senior managers a couple of months ago, Europe-wide. And one of the things they wanted to talk about was personal effectiveness. And I found this video. Again, a little bit nervous about it because it's quite simplistic. But we did evaluation sessions just a few weeks ago. And one of the key themes was this one video, because it really, really helped them, not just in work, but in their lives, interestingly, as well. So this video is called the Rocks, Pebbles and Sand concept. Has anybody come across this before? Fab. Okay. How many of you currently and often think about your rocks and your pebbles and your sand? Is that part of your thinking process? Okay. Some of you do, some of you don't. Okay, so common sense, but maybe not common practice. So it's about 3 minutes long, and it talks about personal effectiveness and thinking about the work that you do and thinking about that as rocks and pebbles and sand. So this talks about it from a kind of life perspective and a home perspective, but it's easily translatable into our work lives as well. So have a watch. Make some notes if you want, and we'll have a quick chat about it afterwards.
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wanted to make a point about how we make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost, and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff, and material possessions. If you were to put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, play with your children, go for a run, write a letter to your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first. The things that really matter, set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand.
Here, end of the lesson on how to run your lives. Okay, so that is definitely a focus around life in general. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, just individually, and make some notes as well as some pads in the middle of the table if you want to use them. So think from a work perspective, what are your rocks? What are the fundamental things that you have to be doing to make sure that your business runs effectively? Okay, whatever that might be. Then what are the pebbles? What are the things that you also have to do, but maybe not the kind of strategic things? And what's the sand? What's all that stuff that fills up all the spaces that potentially you are spending too much time on and not allowing the pebbles and the rocks into your jar? Okay, so that could be looking at Google, getting distracted by LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, whatever it might be in the middle of the working day. What other stuff are you doing that's not actually adding value to your business at all? Okay. Some of you that will come quite naturally. Maybe some of you need to take this away. For those of you who like to reflect a little bit more and maybe think about it as you go through the rest of this week. So remember, your rocks are the fundamental things, the things that will really add value to your business, the stuff you have to do, but you don't always do. The pebbles are the other important things. The sand is all the distractions, the stuff that you know you're not disciplined enough often. And it creeps in and it sucks up the time in your day, or your week, or your month. Anybody struggling with the concept? Are you all right? Okay, when you're done, and if you're happy to, have a conversation with the person sat next to you. Because actually just talking it through might make it a little bit more clearer for you, and see if you can come up with some actions to help resolve that. The action just might be a little bit more self-discipline, maybe. It's easier said than done, we know. But share it with the person sat next to you when you're ready. Just for a couple of minutes each. Okay, time's up. So would anybody like to share anything that you just identified in that very brief conversation? Any thoughts? Anybody? Just based on the rocks, pebbles, and sand. What?
Sand down as emails. A lot of it.
Yeah, dunes full of emails. Yeah. Okay. That comes up all the time. And do you know what? Probably for the last 15 years, people have been saying that to me easily. It's too many emails. It's like, don't look at them all the time. But we have to. I get 300 emails a day. It's like, there's no rule book that says you have to have your email on all the time. It's a communication tool. But we get distracted, we get sucked in, and we live reactively in the inbox sometimes. And actually, it's just a tool to help us to do our job. Often the more important stuff, the rocks, do not sit in your inbox. That comes up here.
I know in 12-week planning, the book 12-week planning, it tells you to open your emails, read them, shut the emails down, do not go near them until lunchtime. We're just getting drawn into them all the time, don't we?
We had to scale it the whole place because we were project managing 20, 30 jobs at once. Like you say, the stuff that actually mattered, they're in there.
Yeah.
If it's an email, open at 12, on for an hour, turn it off, back on again at 4.
Yeah.
But if there's a problem, you get a phone call.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a study I read there about how sort of going into your emails gives you the same sort of rush to follow the sort of slot machine, sort of like that. Chance of like, oh, what's going to be in there? What can I react to? What's going to be there? It's a bit of a
Yeah.
habit, isn't it? Like, what have I got?
Yeah.
The industry I used to work in, though, being reactive, I mean, we had a lot of New York American clients who, if you didn't respond like that, you know, just expects you to be cool. And I find that a really, because that's not the business I'm in now. You know, I could turn on my emails, deal with them, turn them off for a couple of hours, get something really focused done. But it's a really hard habit to break.
This,
for 25 years, I was like,
yeah.
How many people do you think in the room could turn their emails off after half an hour of catching up in the morning, just switch them off till lunchtime? How many people could do that?
I do.
I can do that. I don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Do it, Vicky. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. But it's just a habit, isn't it? Because, like, you know, those, well, I think most of us have been employed in the past. And it's just this expectation, especially like in working in big businesses where a lot of my clients work across time zones. So they get emails from Asia, then Europe, and then the States. And like there's like constant flow of email, but nobody's talking to each other, actually. So, yeah, it is a discipline. And often I get an email I'll go, right, what's the right thing now? Do I just turn into a keyboard jockey and just fire one back because this is the most efficient thing to do? Or do I pick up the phone and talk to them because that's the most effective thing to do? It's quite a big difference between being efficient and effective.
The other thing about email is the CC culture.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to demonstrate I've done this by CCing in everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or I'm not happy, so I'm going to copy in your boss. Yeah.
I don't have, I'll never follow it up, but when it doesn't get done, I can say, well, I did my bit.
Yeah. It's off the back. But at the end of the day, we all run our own businesses, so we decide what the culture in our business is going to be. So we decide actually how we communicate by email, and we role model that consciously or unconsciously. So it's just something to think about. Okay. So any other thoughts? That's not email. So we could talk about that for us.
Not in this part of my life, but in my previous life, it was phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
I've been used to constantly get phone calls over and over again, and I couldn't action them because you're on the road.
Yeah.
So sort of like the advice we were given is to change your voicemail every single day, and you can do the same to your emails and put in your out of office on to say that you are going to be in a meeting for the next 4 hours. So people only ever hear, what day it is, and I'm in a meeting. Oh, I better ring sales then.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my out of office, I don't change it every day, but it just says I'm not around, but I aim to reply within 24 hours. Same with my voicemail. It's like I'm not around. Leave a message, because often people don't, or send me a text and I'll get back to you when I can. So I'm setting an expectation about when I come back. Don't expect an email reply from me every day, because I'm not around to do it, because I'm actually doing more important stuff today. My focus is somewhere else. I'm not going to get distracted. Yeah, but if it is urgent, they will phone back and they will leave a message. Often people don't leave a message because guess what? It's actually not that urgent. It's not that important either.
Funny how elderly parents will be very good at not answering their phone or messages and stuff, and they've got all day on their hands. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. We can still learn lessons from different generations. Okay, cool. Right, I need to move on. So, no, we've had you once already. Okay, cool. Right, so we talked about time, and one of the reasons why I don't like to call this a time management session, because often time isn't the problem. We are, because we've all got 24 hours in the day. Yeah, we've all got exactly wherever we are in the world. We've all worked to a 24-hour clock. But some people are naturally better at managing their time and being more effective than others. Okay, so a bit of a quiz. Okay, how much time, according to research that's reasonably recent, can we actually focus on a computer screen and be effective doing that, do you think? How long in seconds or minutes or hours do you think that is? Okay, right. No, don't shout out the answers. It's fine. It wasn't my fault I didn't make that clear. Okay, make a note down. Just write it down if you want to. Just make a mental note. Okay, how much time does it take to refocus on our work after an interruption, whether that's a phone call or an email or Facebook, whatever it might be? Okay, and and we are responsible for what percentage of interruptions that sabotage our own focus. So what is the percentage of that? Okay, so 3 numbers. How long can we stay concentrated on the computer screen? How much time does it take to refocus after an interruption? And we're responsible for what percentage of interruptions that sabotage our own focus? Okay, so how are we derailing ourselves? Okay, first one, computer focus time. How long can we focus on the screen for? 45 minutes? 30, 20, anything lower? Yeah, probably.
Connected to a major monitor. So 20 minutes tops.
Tops. Okay, time to focus after an interruption. What do we think?
45 to an hour.
Okay, so up to an hour. Okay, a couple of minutes. Okay, and okay, whole range of stuff going on. And what percentage of interruptions do we sabotage ourselves? 75%. Okay, cool. Right, so according to some research, just a couple of years ago, computer focus time 40 seconds. We can really concentrate. Our brains have not been created to look into computer screens. In fact, we've only been doing it for 50 years out of 10,000 years of evolution. Our brains aren't made to look into computer screens. Okay, so 40 seconds according to CAT scans and lots of research. That is not a lot of time when you think how much time we all spend looking at computer screens. Okay, our brains can't concentrate on looking at one thing and being effective doing that for such a long time. 29 minutes is probably about an average of whatever we said in the room, 50% for ourselves. Okay, so there are lots of distractions in the world. There are probably more distractions now than there ever have been before. It's not our fault. We are biologically wired to be looking at lots of different things, not just something that's this far away from our face or this close to our face all of the time. But what's really important is that we give time in our day or in our week to let our minds wander. Okay, some people think it's really frivolous and really stupid advice. How many times have you taken the dog for a walk, been in the shower, sat in the toilet, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden, all those problems that you've been not been able to sort out, suddenly it all slots into place. It's not when you're tired. It's not when you focus on your screens. It's when we are allowing our brains to empty a little bit, and the unconscious brain then kind of kicks back in again. Usually, if I'm really, really struggling with something, I'll stop working on it and I'll go for a walk. 20 minutes later, I know exactly what I need to do and I come back and I get it done. It's a much more efficient and effective use of time, rather than sitting there going, right, I'm just going to do some more Google research and find out even more information about this. Actually walking away from it, allowing our brains to empty, some unconscious and conscious thought can help us resolve that. So in your diary, the challenge is, are you filling your diary 37.5 hours minimum? Probably. We all work in a week, probably a lot more than that. Are we filling that with doing stuff rather than thinking and planning and being creative? I bet you don't allow any time or very little time in your diaries to do that. Okay, it's really important because creativity and innovation, we are responsible for that in our businesses. We've got to allow time to do that. We need time away from doing stuff to allow that to happen. Okay, but also managing our time and being effective stops us with the feeling of overwhelm, which a lot of us have experienced over the last couple of years. So more distractions than ever before. So maybe it's not time management, but it's attention management that we need to be thinking about. So to help us think about how we can manage ourselves, I've got 3 minutes left. So I'm going to whiz through this. Okay, on the email that Joseph will send out, it's got these 10 top tips on how better to manage your time so you're more effective, more efficient in what you do. My challenge to you is have a look through that list when you get it, block some time aside to do it, that's the most important part, and then choose one or two of those things to start working on which is most pertinent to you. When you start to get better at that, then choose another 2 things. Okay, you can't do it all at the same time. But just doing one or two of those things will immediately make you more efficient. And some of you have already said that when I did that 1 to 10 conversation right at the start. Like managing distractions, prioritizing your work, setting your goals, thinking about what your rocks are. Having a break is also a really important way to help you become more effective at work. Some of you ever seen this grid before? Yeah, some of you have. If you've ever done a time management course, you would have done this in a corporate life or a business life. Essentially, it's called the Eisenhower Time Management Grid. So after President Eisenhower. But what he identified to help him be efficient in the work that he did, he split everything down into 2 areas. What is urgent and what is important. Urgent is not the same as important. Important is not the same as urgent. Your important tasks are your rocks, the stuff that adds long-term value to your business. Okay. Stuff that is urgent is usually other people's priorities or their lack of time management themselves or the reactive stuff. Can you just, those phone calls from America saying, I need this now. Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's usually somebody else's priorities, somebody else's important task becomes very, very urgent for them and they'll impact on your day. Whether that's somebody that you're working for you, a stakeholder, a client, whoever that might be. Problem is, if we're always thinking about urgent and important, we're always firefighting. We're always reactive. We're always in our inboxes. We don't get shit done, basically, because we're always being reactive. If we're reactive, then we fail in the long term. We need to allow time for being proactive. So what you can do, to-do lists are all right, but the problem with to-do lists are you'll write the first thing at the top of the list and you'll make another 10 notes and you'll start with the thing at the top of the list. But that is the first thing that came to your mind. It's not necessarily the most urgent or important thing to do. Okay, so to-do lists are all right, but they need a bit of governance themselves. So you can have a grid. This is on the document I'm going to send you as well. And think about stuff that you need to do now. So stuff that is urgent and important, stuff you just have to get out the door that day. The stuff that is important but not necessarily urgent, this is where we should be spending most of our time, in this zone here. Okay, so this is rocks and some pebbles as well. Okay, stuff you have to decide, but it's fundamental that you have to do, like a tax return or whatever it might be, something that's really, really important. Yeah, getting a quote off to a client, whatever it might be. And there's other stuff. So stuff that's not urgent, not important, like sorting out your filing cabinet as a distraction from doing the really important stuff, that might fit in there. Stuff that's not urgent, not important, do you have to do that at all? Or could you, if you got people working for you or with you, could you delegate that to somebody else? As an example. More information about that in the document I've sent you as well. And lastly, the stuff that always crops up, and that's why I put the slide in last, because I knew we would have spoken about it before, is manage the distractions. Okay, this is about attention management more than time management. I'm guilty of it. I'm just between coaching calls. I'll have a quick look on LinkedIn to see what Joseph's put on. Just to see what's going on. Or I'll see somebody's post and go, oh, I like that. And then 5 minutes later, you're still scrolling through LinkedIn and another 10 minutes has gone by. Yeah, it's 10 minutes wasted time. Okay, so this is a real problem for people these days. With all the social tech that we've got, don't allow yourselves to get distracted. Ask yourself the question, is this adding value to my day? It's really, really simple. Yes or no. Really simple question. If it's not adding value, stop it. Delete the app. Because you can always restore it later in the day if you really need to. Okay, cool. That's it. That's me. Just a few minutes over. Sorry about that. Let's write for June if anybody wants anything. That's all I'll ask with the document that Joseph sends out. That's for your use only. Please don't forward it to anybody else. Cool. That's me. Done. Thank you.
You've given all the information.
Cool. Well done. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Lyle was writing things down. I've always said about the club and pulling really, really great is you only need one thing to take away from that. Obviously, I'll send this out. Feel free to contact Dave and talk to him about what he knows. It's immense. But take one thing away and use it. I'm going to switch my emails off. Vicky? Yeah. I'll email you tomorrow and say we've done it. When I did the 12-week planning, I started in November 18, still do today. It's more a financial planning document, really, a target, goal-driven thing. But the actual book is all about, planning and actually put time to do certain things. One of them was switch these emails off, and I just never got to it. So I'm going to try tomorrow. I'm not going to do better than try. I'm going to do tomorrow. So thanks so much for that. That was absolutely brilliant. Not really any more slides really there. Just really the open day, just to remind you on that, which you all know about 3 weeks' time. Don't turn up the week before, otherwise you're the only ones here. And let's enjoy ourselves next time out. Thanks to Arap as well for enlightening us on content and some notes myself on that. Thanks again, Dyfrig. It's really, really great. So thanks very much, folks. Sorry.
Does the meeting after the 14th? Is that in 2 weeks' time?
Yes, then the 28th, and then I'll let you know the other dates. I think Dan's now agreed some dates with the venue, so we can get the other dates out in July, August onwards. Okay, thanks so much, folks.
Every email is giving you, as you say, other people but if I don't do them, I don't get them.
That's already done as well. Yeah. Well, I'll see you Friday. As long as Dan's okay. Yeah. Well, if he's not, just let me know and we'll stand it down if you want it. Yeah. It's healthy though, isn't he? Got good colour.
See, when you said about rock, and then you said about your business, but I'd already thought it down. I wrote family, fitness, socialising, business as my four. If I don't see friends, I get depressed. You know, if I don't get time for myself to go for a run or bike ride, again, I get depressed. And, you know, family, that's so, yeah. We actually had a guy called Anthony Russell from business.
Yeah, I'll do James.
And he's now on my board. So through my business experience around the strategy, we came out with a 12 really clear projects and some context to each project. So things like finding the marketing strategy, successful code pilot,